Hey everyone, Sean here, and welcome back to another review for Invincible Season 3. We're only going to be talking about Episode 7 because there is quite a bit to talk about from this one episode alone. Right away, I would like to say that it's a very dense episode. Even though this is just one episode to talk about for this, I felt like there is a lot to take away from in comparison to several other ones up to this point, where I talked about like the first 4 episodes in one go, and then you have the 2, but then this one was something for me to talk about and dedicated for this one video, due to the nature of it. I think it's a pretty good word to describe it. It's very heavy and dense, quite a bit to take away from, like I've been saying. So let's break it down. This will be a spoiler-free segment, and then I will have a spoiler dump for another video. So episode 7 is, yes, still continuing from Mark dealing with sort of his internal conflict. He's kind of in his own head still with the fact that, he sees himself as like the fault for the situation that happened with Nolan or Omni-Man and himself when they're fighting in the city and everything, and how a lot of people lost their lives and stuff like that. It's still in his mind. It's still lingering, thanks to Powerplex. Previously, I got it correct and I overcorrected and then that wound up being wrong. So Powerplex put that into his head, basically. But while Powerplex himself is demented, like he's just out of his mind. He's just not entirely there anymore because of the fact that he lost those that were precious to him, right, that are important to him. But maybe from the start he's always been a pretty unhealthy minded individual, unfortunately, but that's for another discussion. He does make an appearance in here, but that's all I'm going to say. And along with a number of characters, and of course from the trailers or the sort of sneak peeks and stuff like that, yes, you do see a bunch of marks or invincibles, right, from different dimensions. So it kind of is obvious to some degree of how they came to be, right? So there is another individual involved who has made an appearance before, but not going to say who just for the sake of it. But you'll probably know who I'm talking about, and it's quite heavy, like I've been saying. Like, it's just there's just so much that happens, right, in this 1 hour of this episode. And there are a lot of characters just involved. You don't get to see all of them, unfortunately, kind of just implications, and you do see a little glimpses of some characters, but a lot of off-screen action, if that makes sense. But the implication is there. It is a worldwide phenomenon or scale. This is essentially a wake-up call for what's to come. But the only fault I will give for this episode is just the lack of a pretty good setup. I know IGN kind of pointed it out, and I saw like a lot of comments kind of saying otherwise, disagreeing and stuff like that, or just like, hey, this is a good show, blah blah blah. It's like, yes, from a isolated standpoint, this is a very good episode. Everything else is almost perfect. Good action. The animation does complement it, just enough, I would say. There could have been, better dynamics and stuff like that, angles and all that stuff. It's not like what you're going to see in like a lot of anime and stuff like that, or a lot of like animated heavy shows, right? But this does really do the job. Like, you get it. The weight is there. The scale is, the scale is there. Like, you believe it. The sort of what's on the line, the danger, just the seriousness to take away from, the weight that's on Mark's shoulders. The quality writing is still hitting through. And, tastefully involving a couple of other characters that came from season 1, I believe, for that little sprinkle of comedy and humor, sprinkles or dashes, right? Just to kind of keep things a little interesting. You don't want to have one flavor all the time or the entire time. You kind of always want some sort of palate cleanser to take in more of that flavor for later on. And by the end of it, it is quite satiating, and it also leaves you hungry for more, if that makes sense. Especially what's implying by the end, or not even implying. It's just they just straight up show what happens, and it really sets up for the last episode of this season. And I'm on my edge of my seat. I definitely cannot wait for next Wednesday night or Thursday daytime, depending on when you watch it or want to watch it on time. Quite the very bold treat to take in, especially if you love Invincible. It just really gets a lot of characters going, and I think it, simply put, it's a level very, very good piece. Other than that, like I said, like the setup was kind of just lacking. It kind of just happens, right? I mean, it does set up a little bit. It does have initial like little tease, but it just lacks a little, more of that throughout the season, and it kind of does the same thing in season 2. With Angstrom Levy, I think. Yeah, Angstrom Levy. While yes, he is a pretty significant villain, I felt like they didn't show enough of him sort of throughout the season in order for him to be, a well-rounded written character. While yes, they do explain quite a bit from the beginning, that's all you kind of get. It's like you kind of just see him from the beginning, and then like maybe a couple parts by the end of whichever episode, and then of course the big finale, right, for that season. That's just kind of like how it felt like, the similar rhythms were have to be here. It kind of sings the same or very similar tune for this episode as well, unfortunately. So those problems, I guess you could say, do repeat in this season to a T. But other than that, everything else was firing, right, on all cylinders. So that's like the quick gist of it. Again, it's very hard to explain without having to spoil things. It's just quite a bit to take away from, even from this one episode. What's to come for Mark, right? What is to come for other characters and such like that? It does a good job, still continuing the side stories and stuff like that, and you really get to see a certain someone's abilities, right, when they go all out, and then pretty creative little dynamics from certain side characters, right, other superheroes with their abilities as well, but you only get to see them for a very brief moment, which is kind of sad, but it is what it is, right? They're side characters at the end of the day. I wish you could kind of get to see more of that, because yes, there is a lot of off-screen implication, right? And also, yeah, like you only get to see the beginning and then the very end result, not so much like the middle of it throughout the sequence, this entire sequence. So it really also does open up a lot of things. And on top of that, of course, there's a lot of Easter eggs that come along with that too. So it's like it does play some other songs too, right? The same songs, but at least there is a tasteful, right? You get it. It's supposed to be like not a homage, but like a little trip down memory lane for the Invincible fans. And as I mentioned, yes, there's a bunch of marks, and you really get to see like the range that Steven Yeun gets to do in this one. It's just funny. It's kind of a treat to see if you want to see him, in different sort of character tropes or whatever. There you go, right? It's definitely one of those like what ifs, if you will. The costuming and stuff like that for a number of those characters are, it's a bit of a hit or miss, but it is what it is. I mean, they're all Mark and they're all Invincible, so it's, you can only do so much with it, and it's appropriate, I guess, to have some of the same costumes, but it's still Mark from those said times or dimensions. So, that's pretty much it on that. That's all I can say before I start really repeating myself. So. If I were to give this a rating, usually I like to give a rating for everything, like the entire season, but if I were to grade this episode alone, it's an absolute solid 9. I think that one point is just the lack of that good setup. But otherwise, very, very good episode with a lot of action, a lot of good tie-ins with the characters. Still continuing off with some side stories and stuff like that, still kind of chugging along for some, but the end results and stuff like that is very interesting for some, and for some others it's still going, right? So it's definitely more to see, more to come, and while setting up a very, very good beginning of, well, another character, right, who makes an appearance and stuff like that of great significance. So anyways, so that's pretty much it. 9 out of 10. Very, very good episode, and can't wait to see the last one, right? So that's pretty much it on this one. Thank you very much. If you have any comments about Invincible Season 3, Episode 7, keep them spoiler free. Leave them down below. Love to check them out. So again, thank you very much, and I will see you guys in the spoiler dump. So I will see you in the next one. Sean out.